listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send us an email, I love getting your questions. I love getting your comments. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and we're heard Monday through Friday right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and in Europe on Radio X. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is a gentleman we've had the pleasure of having on the show before. His name is Scott LEMRIEL. He is let me see, how can I best describe Scott? Well, he investigates the hidden truth. He's a researcher who is passionate about revealing for the benefit of others how they can have their own direct experiences with what he reveals about his discoveries via special techniques he also demonstrates, and what he is continuing to uncover regarding purposeful hidden truth on Earth and throughout the grand galactic multi-dimensional universe. Joining me now is Scott LEMRIEL. And Scott, welcome back to the X-Zone. Great having you with us again.
Oh, it's good to be here. I was delighted to be on back a while ago, and I'm just as happy to be back again now.
Scott, you've come up with a new book. And a new race of how do we describe them? Are they extraterrestrials? Are they humanoid? Are they interdimensional travelers? Are they galactic travelers? And I'm talking about the Say-Rays.
They're all of the above, actually. You hit it right on the nose.
Tell us about it. How did you discover this race?
Well, I discovered the series. Actually, I found out about them first when I began to write this book. And it started out being a book that I was inspired to write after many years. After completing 3 other books called the Parallel Time Trilogy, I was inspired to write this book to begin to tell people about how I discovered this races from off-world, other realities, other dimensions, travels down the past time track. When I was a young boy, maybe 3 years old, some phenomenal things happened to me that really changed the course of my life back then. And then through the course of events throughout my lifetime, about 4 years ago, I guess, I started to write this book to reveal some of those experiences for the benefit of others. And that's when I was introduced to Torellian, who's in the book. He's the Say-Rays ambassador. The Say-Rays race is very little known, if at all, amongst the UFO researchers and community. They are the most senior or most advanced race. They're human, very, very tall, Rob. They're like 18 to 25 feet tall. We get our genomes of our DNA or pattern for human life from them. And my explorations with them, they've shown me that they were responsible for seeding human and humanoid and other life, not only in this galaxy, the Milky Way, but in Andromeda and many others a long time ago, and brought those cultures up to spacefaring rates and then kind of vanished for a very long time. They recently went through what you might say an elevated consciousness transformation that showed them the reason why they should get involved here again, particularly with the problems of this planet and others, where tyrant races have been allowed to break an off-world treaty to influence leaders here and to change the course of things strictly for property and resources. So that's how it got started, Rob.
All right, Scott, stand by. You and I have to take a small break here. Exonation. Scott LEMRIEL is our guest this hour. His website is www.paralleltime.com. That's www.paralleltime.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, send me your emails. Tell me your thoughts. Who would you like to hear on this show? What topic would you like us to talk about? It's that plain, it's that simple. Send your emails to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. That's xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. Scott and I return on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, don't go away.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Welcome back, everyone. Scott LEMRIEL is our guest. His website is paralleltime.com. And Scott, before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about these rather tall, well, how do we describe them? Are they our creators? Are they part of our mythology? Are they part of our philosophy? How do you describe them?
All of the above. They are the race that, if you want to call them part of the creator, I would. We are. But they're much more ancient, as several billion years old human race. So we're kind of prototypes. And many other races were brought into creation in benevolent ways long ago, which, of course, means that they are human. We get our genomes, our DNA from them, as do many other bipedal races in the galaxy. Some that are tyrant races now, most of which are benevolent, originated from them, but they didn't create any tyrant races. That was some directions those guys went in on their own. This race was responsible for bringing into creation a long time ago human beings, which also means that human beings did not ever originate on this planet. And the extraterrestrial races of one type or another under treaty have been coming here to this particular world. In my explorations with beings from off-world and friends from other realities, I've learned that they've been coming here one scenario or another for over 50 million years since the dinosaurs were extinct. So there's a whole hidden, missing history of mankind that people have been deliberately made to forget, shall we say, and yet they're capable of recalling it.
In Chapter 6 of the series, you talk about a grand deception. What is that?
That is a normal human being on many other world systems. There are hundreds of millions of them in our galaxy alone, and yet people have had an event orchestrated without their awareness or consent that has kept them from being able to be aware of any of that. The grand deception has to do with an implant process, which is kind of terrorizing programs placed in the electromagnetic field of a being. In a subconscious area, it's artificially created, And it's very clever because it doesn't play across the nervous system so you see or hear it, but you just feel it. And what that does to a person is it keeps them from confronting what's below that implant, which is a higher faculty of direct knowing perception. So on other worlds, normal human beings, which we came from originally, live 1,000 years minimum. They're telepathic, and they have photographic memories. And they know this on those worlds when they're raised from their parents and from their what you'd call benevolent governments there. They know this stuff. And they're telepathic. So the grand deception has to do with implanting people so they can't have access very easily to these higher faculties. They forget. They're made to forget because a normal human being is telepathic. And we all are, but today on Earth people call it intuition. But it's actually much more accurate and deeper than that. So that's a grand deception.
After World War II, why did a former president of the United States turn down a gracious offer of a very advanced, benevolent human extraterrestrial ambassador from a vast alliance of spacefaring world systems to awaken the Earth's unaware populace?
Eisenhower, who was, in my view, a very good man, conscientious and ethical man, who had come out as being, the commander of a five-star general that brought World War II to an end, in part, became the president in this country after Truman. Truman brought into creation what's called the National Security Act and the CIA, I think, 3 weeks after the Roswell, New Mexico crash. And they did that in order to classify or keep hidden what they were doing with the fact that they had been contacted from, at first, benevolent races from other star systems who were greatly concerned about nuclear bombs going off on this planet and what it would do. And when Eisenhower became president, he actually met with two groups. People don't know about, a lot of people know about a first group he met with somewhere out at Edwards. First group were benevolent human beings, and the ambassador of that group offered to bring cures for diseases, solve the economic crisis, the ecological crisis, get rid of pollutants, and do a lot for this planet, and reveal their existence to the people of this world, in which case, if that was voluntarily done by all the governments of the world, they could have done this at that time and brought us into an accepted member of spacefaring planet amongst all those out there. Eisenhower, who came out of World War II, also brought into this country, and I think Truman started this, some of the Nazi SS scientists that were some were sent over to the Soviet Union, some were sent here. Right? Well, they had actually made a contact with little gray extraterrestrials, and they were fed information scientifically, illegally, breaking an off-world treaty. Nuclear weapons, for instance, which no benevolent race would have provided that kind of technology to a planet like this. So that has been monitored by good races ever since then without directly intervening here. But the Soviet Union and the United States inherited these Nazi scientists, pardoned them, put them in the head of NASA like Werner von Braun, and what came with them were these little gray contacts. So it didn't go away. Mm-hmm. When President Eisenhower met with the first good group, him and his generals, obviously, were pretty terrified, even though the beings they met with were uplifting. This is an extraterrestrial race, and they're going to say to themselves, well, how do we tell the populace that we're in touch with extraterrestrials after World War II when we want them to be baby boomers and rebuild? You can see the dilemma the guy was in. What do you do with such a group? And how do you know they're honest? How do you know there's not some kind of deception going on here? So they reluctantly turned them down. The ambassador of that group told him, we'll return at a later date when it's more acceptable. Now, what people don't know is that he met with a second group under off-world treaty amongst races that was put into place after a galactic war 500,000 years ago. And it's been policed ever since. He was confronted by a tyrant extraterrestrial ambassador who offered a limited exchange of extraterrestrial technology in exchange for doing genetic sampling of our populace. Eisenhower would have turned that down immediately, because it's unethical, and he wouldn't want that happening. So this ambassador, being very clever, said to him, all right, if you don't sign a treaty with us to get this technology, we'll go to the Soviet Union, give it to them, and we'll make them the preeminent power on this planet. What Eisenhower didn't know is they were already in the Soviet Union doing the same blackmail game to them. They played one against the other. That's where this all started, how we got all this technology so quickly after World War II. That's where it began. Eisenhower was very unhappy after he left the White House. In his parting speech, and I believe there's a YouTube video still available for people to watch, he warned people about the growing power of the military-industrial complex, a term he coined and helped put in place along with Truman, which he regretted the rest of his life because he watched the power of the presidency stripped from him in his last year. That's where this started.
So, Scott, are you saying that nuclear weapons were not created by humans but were brought to this planet by extraterrestrials?
The technology to build them, yes, definitely. They're not new.
So how do we explain...
But they are illegal.
They're
illegal off this world.
How do we explain all the scientists and the unequivocal proof that it was our own scientists who discovered this and who worked so hard at it, and nowhere in any of the articles, journals, and texts I've read are extraterrestrials ever mentioned?
They wouldn't be, would they, under a classified system?
But how do we know that they really did this then? What is the proof we have?
The best way I have of sharing with people how to get proof of this is for them to have their own direct experiences with it. This is the only thing that makes sense to me, and I'm sure it's what makes sense to the listeners and to you or anyone else, common sense. So what I do in my talks and in just like radio shows like this, and when I go to major conferences around the world, I share with people how to utilize a special vibratory word that was brought to this planet. Did not originate here either.
And you see, the last time you were on the show, you taught us how to do you.
That's right. It's not owned, possessed, patented, or copyrighted by any organization on this or any world. There are some people that know about it or promote it, but it is not owned by them. And it sounds just like you said. It's a long, drawn-out tone, any vocal tone that people are comfortable with, or even mentally, if you just imagine a tone and send it out, it'll still work. It doesn't have to be with your vocal cords. It just helps you to get more of a grasp on the experience. So you just get comfortable in a chair or lay in a bed. Imagine first, and this is very important, someone or something you love and have gratitude for. It can be a person, place, or thing. Sets up a certain vibration through the pineal gland in the center of the brain. And what I mean by that is when you hew, it vibrates the head only upward, or the center of the brain. It opens a kind of a door. Excuse me?
Nothing. I'm listening.
And there's a certain protection that comes with this that is uplifting and loving that the person needs to experience for themselves, because it doesn't do me any good to talk about it if I can't at least help people discover this for themselves. And then they have the right and the privilege to explore this hue and what it does, because it connects with beings off-world and other realities that use this and hear this when we do it, who are benevolent only, that have never been implanted, they've never had their genome shut down like the people on Earth have, and they can help us. If we give them true free will permission, they will help us begin to recall what was deliberately suppressed in us subconsciously without our consent or awareness. They help to do that in a very gradual, very balanced way. I know this from experience, so when you send out the hue, the best way to do it is to take some deep breaths, let go of all concerns for any problems you have, health or otherwise, just for this time. Put it on a shelf. And then here's what I suggest people do. It's very important. Send out this statement. It'll make sense to people. Here's what I say. Safely show me deliberately hidden truth on a grand multidimensional scale and the much greater knowing of the love within it. And then send out this you.
Scott, Hugh and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be right back after this news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Scott LeMriel, and I, LEMRIEL. And I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue, right here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com.
Exonation, Scott LEMRIEL is our guest of this hour. His website is www.paralleltime.com. And Scott, you know, to think that extraterrestrials have been influencing the existence of mankind for the last 50 million years, and yet there's very little, if any, mention of this anywhere. How can this information have been suppressed throughout the centuries and throughout history?
Well, that largely has to do with an off-world treaty about non-interference here. Tyrant extraterrestrials will try to break or find a way around a treaty to get resources and enslave people or to use planets just short of going to war. And that kind of Cold War has been going on a very long time regarding this particular world, which is why no one race has ever been allowed to dominate it entirely, benevolent or malevolent. That's all coming to a head. So basically what I share with people, as we mentioned in the last segment, is ways for them to work maybe 15 minutes a night or a day on this exercise with the hue, because they'll begin to have experiences in their dreams at night when they wake up relative to things they've been made to forget long ago and out there. And I know this from my own experience that it works, and I'm getting, of course, have been for some time getting emails and correspondence from people around the world that are beginning to experience this as well. On Earth, prior to the existence of radio, in this recorded time period, most 10,000 years, there really wasn't any way for people to communicate around the world effectively or easily, as you know, in order to talk about what was going on. There just wasn't any way today.
But what about the way the religious philosophies have spread so fast? You know, if there was something as significant as extraterrestrials actually having such a significant part of the creation, evolution, and growth of this planet and society, doesn't it make common sense that this information would be spread just as the information about God, Jesus, Allah?
No, because if you really look at our history, what people think is history, in recorded few thousand years, was really run by tyrant royal bloodline kings, those kinds of families. And they controlled religions, and they disseminated to people just enough to keep them in line and no more. What I'm saying is that tyrant royal bloodline families were imported here. They didn't originate here originally on their own. It's a way in a small pocket of the earth that a tyrant race can get and use people to mine, to get minerals they use in space technology. And in fact, our world's been able to be colonized in small areas by both good and bad extraterrestrial races under treaty. And when you really look at it, in today's world, the only thing most people hear about are the little grays, tall whites, reptilians, negative species from other worlds. They hear very little, if anything at all, about benevolent humans from other planets.
But why would extraterrestrials who have the ability to traverse time and space need to come to planet Earth for minerals?
It's a very rich, resource-filled world.
Why couldn't they make some? Why couldn't they just synthesize these minerals?
Well, I suppose I'd have to say it comes down to the need to explore and be adventurers, find new worlds, contact new races, which we're trying to do here.
Yeah, that brings another good point. If all this information is already out there, why do we need to go back to the moon? Why are we going to Mars? Why are we trying to look for planets to colonize if the answers are already there? Why are these extraterrestrials being so stingy with their information? I don't buy the concept of off-planet treaties. That's a great escape for people who want to believe but can't substantiate the claims. And we see this a lot within the UFO ET community, Scott.
Oh, I realize that, yeah. I never ask anybody, believe me, I don't, to take my word, what I share with them, or at face value, or on faith alone.
Yeah.
What I do, however, is a little different, because I will share with them a technique, and then I demonstrate it at conferences, and I get them involved in how they can begin to connect with this waking up of this direct knowing perception themselves. Because short of that, people are always going to be deliberately kept in some form of doubt, fear, speculation, or theory, and they're never going to know with certainty.
But what about all the explorations that have gone on this planet? Archaeology, paleontology. Has there ever been a discovery to collaborate these claims?
There have been many. I mean, tall skeletons, 18, 25, 30 feet tall, have been found by archaeologists, and then they're classified almost immediately. And that system is well established and runs very well, and is in place worldwide.
But it also
of the National Security Act.
It also works very well for those people who like to put this concept forward that they don't have to substantiate their claims by providing any evidence, because the information or the proof has been sequestered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Well, both are true. I mean, many people have experienced extraterrestrials, many millions, actually. I think the Vatican recently made a statement, because they needed to, that it's not contrary to belief in the Bible to believe in extraterrestrials. Why would they do that?
Because the Vatican is losing numbers, and they need to do something in order to replenish the people who are sheep and keep going into their pockets and supporting one of the biggest scams on this planet called religion.
I agree. It's a control mechanism.
Yeah, exactly.
So people really, wouldn't you agree that people need to have their own direct experience about this stuff to find out for themselves what's true and what isn't?
If it is legitimate, yes.
Okay. The only way anybody's going to get proof until, I say, the near future, when everybody on this planet will know extraterrestrials exist without a doubt. That's coming. So you'll be here probably to experience that yourself.
Well,
so will everyone else.
To think that we're the only species that lives in this vastness of the galaxies and the universes, you'd have to be a very stupid person to actually, conceive
it'd be pretty arrogant, wouldn't you?
It is, yeah.
I agree. To think that we're just taking rockets and taking them up into space, what they reveal to the public. They don't even fly the space shuttle anymore. It's retired. How are they getting big payloads up there? Because they are.
SpaceX.
Classified vehicles.
SpaceX.
Nah, that's just supplying the space station.
Oh, come on! Do you really think that extraterrestrials are bringing the stuff up to the space, the ISS?
No, I'm saying that classified vehicles that have been reverse engineered based on extraterrestrial technology are.
Can't people give credit where credit is due to the ingenuity of the human beings?
I'm a fan of SpaceX.
I do not buy this reverse engineering at all.
Well,
I really don't, because once again, you hear the stories about about Kevlar, about microchips, and when you do the research, none of these claims of reverse engineering pan out. And if I'm wrong, correct me. I'd love to.
Well, I think it's just misinformed, because intentionally, what is told to the public, particularly after World War II, about what scientists found and how they found it, and who leaked it to them. Colonel Corso was a guy that was instrumental in delivering extraterrestrial bits of technology to Bactra through the military-industrial complex corporations to reverse engineer and make good products for people. That's pretty much historical. They did this to make products that are beneficial, to change the society, which has been tremendous in the last 60-plus years. But that's just the tip of the iceberg of what they were doing with it. The rest of it had to be funded in black projects, classified, to develop, for instance, fiber carbon technology, stealth technology. And those were outdated technologies when they were revealed to the public. So what are they using now?
Well, I don't think the government has to account to the people at all. I really don't. Because as far as I'm concerned, and I have seen no evidence whatsoever about little people or big people from other planets covering our ass out there. All I know for a fact is that there's men and women in all branches of the armed forces who at a moment's notice will give their life for country and the people who live in the country. So you know what? If the United States government, if the Canadian government want to maintain a cloak of secrecy on their products, their defense mechanisms, good luck to you. Thank you very much. And this thing about Big Brother and having too much information. Hey, listen, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. It's only the people who have deep, dark secrets who are really worried about what Big Brother knows.
And that's true. There are people like that.
Sure there are.
On this world. And some of them have a lot to lose in vested interest in industry and our current use of oil as an
exactly. And once again, if these extraterrestrials had so much influence on what's going on in the world, why in the name of God would we still be using carbon-emitting engines? Why would we be using fossil fuel? Why would our rocket technology be so clumsy? What's the big act for? Who's the act for?
You answered it yourself.
Pardon?
You answered it before yourself. There are vested interests here that have a real tough time giving it up for better ways of doing things. They're making huge money on it now off the rest of mankind. That's not an easy habit to break.
No, but
how do you break it when everybody's driving cars? It's not an easy solution. We're going to need help from people. This is what I do, and that's why I'm on your show. We're going to need help from people who are not native to this planet in order to solve some of the problems we have here, because the people that are running it right now in these governments, and what I consider to be a hidden government, are not in control of what they're doing to the degree people think they are, because they're misdirecting this planet in very dangerous ways. Nuclear bombs set off above ground is one example of that. No conscious being in the universe would intentionally set off such a device unless they were somehow influenced to do it.
So who influenced the United States to drop the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the test sites in the Nevada desert?
That comes, in my experience and exploration, from off-world, definitely. And not from races that are nice people. Here's what I share with people. The predominance of races I'm aware of that live out in our Milky Way galaxy are benevolent. Great majority of them. There are a few races which are spacefaring, which are tyrant, imperial type of races. Nothing on this planet, in my exploration of the past time track here, is 35 years of doing that, out of body, meeting beings from other worlds directly, and when I leave my body at night as well, has shown me a history of this planet that is so vast and so different than what people have been allowed to know. And yet, at the same time, I discovered that people have the capability on this planet to know this stuff directly. If they're given an opportunity to wake it up safely, this is why I do what I do today.
But how do you prove it to other people, Scott?
They have to prove it to themselves by putting in a little effort, using the techniques I share with them, because the beings and the energy they need to find that out can be provided to them. But
all right, let me ask you this, Scott.
Of free will.
Let me ask you this, Scott. If this technique allows you to learn the great mysteries of the universe, why aren't scientists using this to make this world a better place? Why aren't doctors using this technique and going to these places to find out how they get cure?
Yeah, they don't know about it.
Or it doesn't exist.
Well, it does. I just shared it with you, and I've used it for 40 years.
That is your belief. That is,
it's not
Scott.
my belief. It's my experience, actually.
All right.
There's a difference between belief and faith and experience.
All right. If you experience something, you can share it with me to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt it is real. Unless you can do that, how?
By sharing with you the hue. If you do it the way we do, like we did the other day, and share, and you work this a little bit, 15 minutes, you're going to have your own experiences.
But the monks have been chanting for years.
Not that one. Omnio, Mariencio, what I may not pronounce it, Om, things like that. This is not from this planet. And it is not capable of contacting anything psychically negative being or technology. And the only way people are going to find it out is by applying it or trying it. Do it in the name of Jesus. Do it in the name of whoever they trust is what I would recommend.
And if it doesn't work?
Well, how are people going to find out unless they
try it and they say, you know what? Nothing's different. Nothing's changed.
Well,
how much of it is based on your own belief Now I'm going to use this word here.
I don't base any of what I do on my belief. I base it only on my direct experience.
Well, you must believe in it in order to do it, or else you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but that came about at first very skeptical. That's not going to work. I'm not going to do that. Then I tried it, and I worked at it for a while and a few months, and I plodded at it many years ago. And then I started having experiences, and then I started knowing, and then I started meeting beings, and it went on for decades. Okay. And it started in my youth as a child.
So how many people around the world right now do you believe are able to communicate using the Hugh method?
I just don't know the numbers. Maybe several million.
Okay.
Yeah, at least by now.
All right.
It's not mainstream, even in late-night radio, but it's becoming that way. I get emails from thousands of people about this, and they're getting experiences.
All right, they're getting experiences, but what are they doing with the experience that they're getting in order to make a positive change in this planet?
Oh, I can answer that, at least for myself. When a person begins to recover or recall much that has been suppressed without their awareness or consent, they begin to become aware that they are a walking, breathing, living channel of a pure form of energy, an omnipresent energy, divine spirit, if you will, amongst those beings who have the spirituality and technology to bring about change on this planet, and they begin to co-create with them here. We need boots on the ground, just the same way everywhere in the universe.
Strange times. Exonation, we'll be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Nation, there's a couple of conferences coming up that I'd like to get Scott to talk about. First of all, Scott, always great talking to you. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us here tonight in the X Zone.
My pleasure.
Tell us about the conferences that are coming up.
Yeah, one of the biggest conferences I went to was 2014 October in Norway, and there's a 2-hour free YouTube video about my presentation to people and how I do it that they can watch just by checking into YouTube and typing in the SERES agenda, S-E-R-E-S. That's free. The conferences that are coming up, one is in Finland, who's the person that's sponsoring that saw my presentation in Norway, putting together a very special conference there. It will be, 10, 11, I think it's the Thursday, the 12th through the 15th. And the first 2 days, he's invited what he calls shamans, or people that, as he calls Siberian term, which means those who know, not just necessarily healers, to this conference for 2 days of hobnobbing to come to a focus of a benevolent nature for the world collectively, and then present 2 days to the public. So that will be taking place then. And then there'll be a conference, Galactic Wisdom Conference 2. I was at last year's that Ted Maher radio show, a friend of mine put on. He's putting on another one in Washington State in June. And the websites for both of those is galacticwisdomconference.com for Washington and dreamers.fi for Europe, for Finland. And I may be going to Japan in October. So that's what's coming up.
Scott, what are your words of wisdom for the X Zone Nation tonight?
Work with the hue. Try it. Explore it. Do it in the name of anybody or any way you're comfortable with spiritually, religiously. It won't matter. It will still be a beneficial and uplifting. And 2, I have the 4th final edition of the SERES Agenda. Was published in August of 2015 after it was published right when I was at Mount Shasta conference last summer, and it has a special technique section in the back, 53 pages that apply to the prologue and all 29 chapters. People will find most beneficial to begin to have their own direct experiences about what I reveal in the book. The next book I published was December 5th, 2015, called The Emerald Doorway. It's the first book of a trilogy, the Parallel Time Trilogy, and it is more about a significant aspect of deliberately hidden history of this Earth and our solar system, starting a little over 100,000 years ago. So people will find that, I think, very stimulating to begin to recall things that happened before this life, even.
Scott, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Pleasure talking to you. And X Zone Nation, if you'd like more information about Scott, visit his website at www.paralleltime.com. That's www.paralleltime.com. And don't forget, you heard it right here on the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. And I don't know, you tell me, are you a skeptic or are you a believer? Send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. You know, a lot of strange things have been able to get broadcast over the years thanks to the X Zone radio show. Tonight we had a lady who says she's an earth angel. We also talked to a Bigfoot investigator and a UFO investigator in Virginia. And we talked with Scott tonight about these extraterrestrials who he believes are responsible for a lot of things that are being suppressed from us, we humans. In my book, it comes down to one thing: proof. I want to believe, but I want to see the proof. Talk is cheap. I want to see the proof. So until next time, my good friends, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.